Welcome to the MMHP in the 989, channeling all styles and eras of Michigan music history. Recorded live inside the Rock Legends Hall of Fame in Bay City, Michigan. Featuring Dr. J, Sir Fred, Mr. Mike, and your host, Scott Baker.
Well, we are podcasting, I should say, once again from the Michigan Rock and Roll Legends Hall of Fame studio here at the Historical Museum of Bay County. And tonight we have two special guests, Cliff Duvernois from Total Michigan podcast and J Ervin Bates from, Time Signatures,
that
right?
Podcast. Read the coffee mug.
I don't have my mug with me. All right. Well, let's just start out. Okay, Cliff, you did just an absolutely great episode on the Hall of Fame here.
Well,
that
thank you.
I so much appreciate that you did that for us. So I kind of know you. I met J Ervin tonight for the first time, but I know you were from Michigan originally, right?
That's correct.
So where were you born? Where did you grow up?
So I was born in a podunk little town called Millington.
Oh,
I think we just got a stoplight there.
Millington.
Yes. Yeah, so way out there in the thumb, population, I think 20.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, a little bit about my story. Grew up there, graduated from Vassar High School, went to college in Daytona Beach, Florida, decided to thaw out for a couple of years, and then I managed to get a job in California. So I scooted west, and I was out there for 23, 24 years, somewhere around there. And then
what were you doing out in California? What work were you doing? Because that led to the podcast to a certain extent, right?
Yeah, well, certain to it, if you round up, I guess. So I was about as far away from music as you could get. I was actually an aerospace engineer.
Oh, wow.
Out there at the Boeing plant. And so there are some people that I think are really born to be engineers. I was bored out of my skull. And I didn't realize this, but I have been a very creative person all of my life. So at some point in time, Boeing and I parted ways, and I decided to be much more creative. And I went into marketing. I started getting into doing videos because that's when all the software was coming out to do video editing at home. You didn't have to go out and drop, $100,000 on some, video editing suite or something like that. You could do it at home. So I really got into that, which led me to podcasting when I was there. And I only did it for a short period of time when I was in California, because next thing you know, my life kind of upended. I wound up back here. But when I came back here, I was like, you know what? I've got an opportunity to do something that I want to do. And I want to be pure creative. I want to focus on stories because I love people's stories. So I'm going to go all in on podcasting here in Michigan.
How did you, when you were out in California, what led you to to do some sort of a podcast out there? Was there any inspiration, or was there a person that suggested this? Or
yes, I had a marketing mentor who said to me, Cliff, you need to get into podcasting. And this was back in 2016 timeframe. And he said, you really need to do this. Number one, I think you got a great voice for it. Number two, I think you got a good personality for it. So you should just do it. And he kept putting his foot up my butt again and again. And finally I acquiesced, because I'm not Don King. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I'm not Oprah Winfrey. So how am I supposed to sit around and interview people and ask people questions, right? But I was like, you know what? He says I should do it. So I did it, and I got into it. And of course, the first couple times, just like when anybody starts a podcast, you are scared out of your skull. And I was really nervous. But what I figured out was my guest was more nervous than I was. So as the host of the show, I realized I was like, you know what? I got to make him feel comfortable, because I want him to talk. I want him to really open up and share what's on his mind and what's on his heart. And from there, one of the things I realized about podcasting was that podcasting is the ultimate relationship building tool.
Yes, it is.
If you want to connect with somebody, start a podcast and sit down with them and just talk to them and ask them questions, and learn their story. And so when I came back to Michigan, like I said, I've been gone for 23 years. Michigan changed a lot in 23 years.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
I wasn't even aware of it. Like when I would come back from LA, I would literally fly in Friday, visit with family on Saturday, and then fly back Sunday. right? My time in Michigan was short. I came back here, and Michigan was a completely different state. And I was like, you know what? This is going to be a golden opportunity for me to really reconnect with Michigan, to the people who have made it awesome. And so that's when I started the show.
All right. And so that's really the heart and soul of Total Michigan, right? You're trying to find guests that have done something
Correct.
unusual and positive.
That's correct.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. That's an important aspect right there. Yeah. Now after I guess I confessed I wasn't that familiar with Total Michigan, but after you interviewed me, I went back to your site and was kind of going through some of the episodes that you'd done. And I noticed that you really didn't do too many on music. I mean, after me, you had, was it Jake Barnes?
Nate Barnes. Yes.
Nate Barnes.
Yes.
Okay, the country music singer. Does that mean that maybe you're taking a little bit of a shift here and looking at some musicians for future?
Well, first off, for the record, let me state that I've got nothing against musicians.
I didn't want to imply that.
I love music. I am so eclectic when it comes to music. I listen to everything. I don't care. As long as the song makes me feel something, I'm going to listen to it.
Okay.
It just so happens that when I'm thinking about musicians, right, who comes to mind, right? I'm thinking like Ted Nugent, right? Michiganders who've done something with music. I think like Ted Nugent. I think about Bob Seger, all of these big names. That's who comes to mind. I'm like, if I could get them on the show, that'd be great.
Yeah.
But like Kid Rock, right now I'm too small, right? Those guys wouldn't give me the time of day unless they had a buddy that owed me a favor or whatever it is.
Don't sell yourself short, man. You never know.
You never know. You never know. So it's like just reaching out, and the beautiful thing when my producer connected me to you, Gary, that's what I realized. I was like, you know what? This is going to be the first music episode that I'm going to be able to do on there. And that's why at the beginning of the interview, I made sure to say in there that Michigan really has put its stamp on rock and roll.
Yes. Oh, definitely.
Right. And there's no doubt in my mind. And it just so happened that after I set up the interview with you, a press agent reached out to me and said, hey, we got this guy, Nate Barnes. He's from South Haven. He's up and coming music singer. He's got a couple record deals coming. He's starting his concert tour. We'd love it if you could interview him. And I'm like, cool, because I'm looking for Michiganders doing extraordinary things, right? So I went and spent the day hanging out with him, which was completely different, eye-opening there.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful.
Yeah, it was real interesting. His work that, he had spent so many years working as, regular job.
Yep.
And then, all of a sudden now he's, kind of on major stages, I guess you could say. And
I have to give him a little bit of a hat tip for that, because I know a lot of people, when they graduate from high school and they say music is my dream, they run headlong into it without thinking, how am I going to make money? How am I going to pay the rent? Whatever it is. And sometimes that unicorn will come along that, like, they have the breakout album, or they're lucky enough to quickly find an audience that will start giving them money, pay for pizza. Hey, you can sleep on my couch. With Nate, he listened to a piece of advice that was like, look, make a living, be the best at what it is that you can possibly do, chase your dream on the side. And if your dream ever gets big enough, then quit your job and chase your dream. And that's exactly what happened with him.
Yeah. Yeah, that was quite a story. Now, J Ervin, you're total opposite here, because your whole podcast is really devoted to music.
It is.
And very specifically to the blues, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So maybe you could kind of give us a little background also. I know you grew up in Bay City, right?
I am so happy to be in this smelly little town. and let me tell you something. There's a distinction here, okay? When Madonna said that back in the mid-'80s, late 80s, whenever she stumbled on the Today Show, I remember when I was a kid growing up, it was not Halloween until you had that smell in the air, which was kind of a sweet, pungent smell that I later discovered was our sugar beet factory.
But of course, what Madonna was talking about wasn't the sugar factory. It was the Dow petrochemical plant that was by her her grandparents' home on
I
Smith
remember
Street.
that smell on that side. Too.
Yeah, right. And I do too, because I grew up in the First Ward, which is right
yeah.
across the river.
Yeah.
And when we used to go and play in the woods by the river, where, of course, you get wooded area, you away from your folks. I mean, it was perfect for kids. But yeah, you could smell that burnt chemical smell from that. So I know exactly what she was talking about. So anyways, don't let me.
Well, Gary,
interrupt you
I want to say thank you guys for having me, Scott and Fred and Mike. And your first name again? I'm sorry.
Cliff.
Cliff. All right. I got it. Cliff Notes. There we go. I got the tie. And it's funny because you're one of the only people I've ever heard use the word eclectic taste in music like I do. That's how I describe my taste in music. I like a little bit of everything. Okay.
Yes.
But the podcast, first of all, I do have a little bit of a background in broadcasting. I actually graduated from Bay City Central in '83 and worked at WCHW, little 10-watt daytime station that ran while we were in school.
I was so jealous reading that. I was just thinking in high school,
that's cool.
You could have had a radio and you could play music.
Yeah, we had the FCC
that was just
license.
like Pinch Me, I'm dreaming.
We had everything. It was
What
really
year
cool.
was that?
Well, it was 81, 82, 83, part of 80 because we had lived in Texas for a while and then moved back.
Because I had my store in Bay City from 75 to 77.
And it hit the air in
there
73.
was some high school station that you could only get for a few blocks.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was it.
Really good.
That was it. And, the cool thing is they just celebrated their 50th anniversary a couple of years ago. And I was contacted by one of the guys that I went to school with, who was a program director, Tim Brando, asked me if I'd do a quick little blurb and congratulate him. And so what they did is they did a montage of people that were there throughout the years. Mm-hmm. And it was so cool to hear that. But it really got me going. When I grew up, I was listening to Dusty Rhodes on WXOX. I listened to the first station in the Saginaw Valley, WBCM. I got to work at both of those stations after high school. So cool. But fast forward now into my adult years, I lived down in the Lansing area, became a member quite accidentally, although I don't believe in accidents, maybe a divine accident, if you will. Started doing photography for the Capital Area Blues Society. And we sat there and talked during one of the meetings. I was invited to come on as a board member. And they were talking about doing programs, blues programs. And I said, well, I've got a background in broadcasting. I'd like to do that. That sounds like fun. So the other board member that was involved with LCC, Lansing Community College, his name is Dedalian Lowry. And he came to me and says, all right, Irv, he said, you want to do a radio program? You want to do a podcast? What would you like to do? And I thought, well, I've done a radio program before. I think I'd like to try podcasting. I know there's 4.5 million other podcasters out there, but I think I have a pretty good niche, if you will. And they said the only requirement is that you stay within the blues genre. You have to be able to tie it to the blues. And so that's what we do with all of our programs. And it doesn't matter if I've heard Ted Nugent and Bob Seger talk about their influences of blues music on their music when they were starting out. We all know that the Rolling Stones started out in the blues. Jimi Hendrix started off in the blues. All of these people, you can go back and there's a definite tie to the blues. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the things that we started out with a little over 2 calendar years. I'm in my 4th season. They go 6 months and do about 20 episodes per season. In just a couple of weeks, I'll have the end of my 4th with 85 episodes in the box. I've interviewed some of the biggest names in the blues, including Joe Bonamassa. This is why, Cliff, I said, don't sell yourself short. I go for anybody. I just got a text from Charlie Musselwhite. If you don't know who he is, he's one of the biggest blues harmonica players out there. Texted me the night before last and says, hey, my sister says you're looking for me. Here's my number. Let's talk. I mean,
Sweet.
I'm not afraid to ask because if you don't ask, you don't get. So that's how I chased Joe Bonamassa for 1.5 years. Seriously.
Right.
I kept bugging his PR guy and going, give me a shot. Give me 30 minutes with him. And I got my 30 minutes. And it was one of the coolest interviews that I've had to date. Everybody,
Lucky you.
Everybody, thank you. Everybody wants to ask him, well, what was it like opening for BB when you were 12? He's been asked that question so damn many times, he doesn't want to hear it. And I was told that going in. So I sat back and I thought, man, what can I ask him? And I watched Guitar Man. And if you've ever seen Guitar Man, it shows when they went and rented the Royal Albert Hall in 2009, he invited Eric Clapton. This was an email that was passed from him to Eric via one of Eric's friends. Okay. Eric agreed. So I thought about this and I said, Joe, let me ask you a question. When you looked over and you saw Eric coming out of the shadows that night to join you on stage at Royal Albert Hall, what was going through your mind?
Yeah.
And it rocked him for a minute. He actually had to think. And I was told by his PR rep afterwards, that was a really good question, man. He was really impressed, But that's what I go for, okay? I like to go for the stories because we are losing so many of our blues musicians. Yes. Fred can speak to this. I mean, Lazy Lester, Dr. Ross, the harmonica boss, John Lee Hooker, Bobo Jenkins. The list just goes on and on. Mm-hmm. And I always say at the end of my show, keeping the blues alive is everyone's responsibility, but preserving the history of the blues, one story at a time, is my mission. And it really is. As long as there's air in my lungs, I want to get as many blues musicians as I can to come on and talk and share their stories. I can't wait to talk to Charlie Musselwhite. I want to talk to him about Chicago, man. What was it like hanging out with all these big names in the 60s?
Yeah.
Him and Elvin Bishop,
Well, they weren't big at that time.
Well, no, but I mean, what was it? Right. What was it like being?
He was there.
He was there at the beginning.
Yeah, Paul Butterfield.
Yeah, Mike Bloomfield. This little group of white guys back in the '60s, man, hanging out with all the big names. They weren't big at that time, of course, but they were as big as they got. Back in Chicago.
Are all your guests? Do they come on live, or do you do some phone interviews as well?
No, what I generally do is I record on Zoom video.
Oh, okay, Zoom video.
If they can't make Zoom video, then I'll do a phoner reluctantly. But I just decided during season 2 to go Zoom video all the time because I want video captures people's imaginations. It generates more interest when you get to see the person talking live. And I generally don't do a lot of editing. I mean, unless there's a hiccup in the connection or something like that, or, they get into a coughing jag or I start sneezing or something like that, I'll edit that out.
How do you switch back and forth so that the viewer sees you and then they see the...
No, I actually have a webcam set up on my end. They have a webcam or the phone or laptop or whatever on their end. And what I do is I record through Zoom, and then I have both of us on simultaneously.
Yeah, it's a dual screen.
Yeah, there's arguments that say you could go and bounce between them, but it's kind of cool being able to see both of these people and see the reactions when you're talking to them.
Yeah, I see that. I noticed, when you did the interview for the Hall of Fame, Cliff, you had, was it like 2 phones set up so that one was on you?
Yes.
And one was on me.
Yes.
And then you edited afterwards. So it was like the conversation was more like a television interview, actually.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, just like you would see like on Dateline.
Okay.
And then what I do when I edit the video at the end, because I've learned that my audience on YouTube prefers shorter form content. Mm-hmm. So I don't put the entire 30-minute interview on there. I'll only do probably maybe 10 minutes at the most.
Right.
That gets the most watches. That gets the most number of people that will actually watch the whole interview, which is fantastic. But since you and I are on similar missions, we're talking all about the story. So I quickly realized in doing a 10-minute format, I'm making it all about you, Gary. I just come on there and kind of stitch the little segments together, put my little 2 cents in there to carry the story along. But all I do is I feature you.
But you've also, besides the video, which is roughly, and I noticed that you've done that in most of your episodes, including the one on Nate Barnes, that one's in the 9 to 10 minute.
Right.
But you also have the longer interview.
Available
that's
as a
possible.
podcast. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
And I always tell people, if you want to check out the full interview, just roll on over to Total Michigan.
Yeah. That's an interesting, I don't know if, are there other podcasts that use that same approach that you're using where you have like the two choices there, the video and
I
then
don't
the
think
whole-
so.
Okay.
I don't think so, because the thing is, when they show you like how to do podcasts and how to do video podcasts, they're really trying to say, okay, let's put our content out there in the most painless format possible. So for me, it was just, okay, let's put a couple video clips together, put it out there, and the video might be 30, 40 minutes long. But I quickly realized that probably 75% of people would drop off after 10 minutes. So then for me, myself, I love music. But there was one show on TV, Anthony Bourdain, No Reservations. And I kept telling myself, I would love to be the Anthony Bourdain of Michigan. And everybody says that.
Yeah.
What happened was one day I said, you know what? Why are you waiting, Cliff? Do it. And so I sat down. I had all the footage. Actually, it was for a restaurant in Saginaw. And every Wednesday night, they do this thing called Grateful Pasta, where 10% of their proceeds goes to a local nonprofit. So I went, interviewed the owner, came back, shot a bunch of B-roll footage, just like I did here at the Hall of Fame. Shot a bunch of B-roll footage, stitched it together in that 10-minute format, just like you would see in a Bourdain episode, and pumped it out there, and it exploded.
Now, when I watched one of yours, I thought of it. I can't think of the guy's name. He's on PBS for the Michigan thing. He's got the mustache.
Under the radar.
Under the radar, yes.
I thought your editing was so similar, very crystal clear, showing what's talking at the moment. It was cool. It was like, wow, and I got to thinking, you're the music guy doing that, man. I saw Gary's, and I'm like, damn, you did it real well. How your editing flows in and connects, and it's the clarity of it all.
Well, thanks, brother. And I do have a long-term vision of getting the show onto PBS.
Yeah.
So if I could get two segments, like I could take a Gary segment and maybe the restaurant and Saginaw segment, stitch them together into one 30-minute episode, then that would be I would have content to put out on PBS to reach even more people with these stories.
Wasn't Under the Radar just here in Bay City
They did one
last year or something?
well a couple of years ago, and this was back when I had the Hall of Fame was just a display at the Bay City Motor Company. They did a show at the Bay City Motor Company, and they did. Yeah, they did show it, but I was not on it. It was, the Cottons, were the owners of Bay City Motor Company. It was basically about them. But yeah. So they were here. And they might have been at some other things in Bay City as well. I don't know.
Okay. The host of that, he was a former drummer.
Oh,
I have the album that he drummed on.
It was like what kind of drummer? Rock or jazz?
Oh
or?
yeah, definitely rock.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Detroit rock and roll.
And imagine that Fred has an album.
The next question is usually, how much do they go for, Fred? Have you sold one yet?
Well, no, I haven't sold one, but I think I need to lower the price.
Well, are you advertising it
show.
as this was
No,
features
I didn't.
the
I
host
should.
of?
Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah, well, certainly that would probably add to the desirability of that, just because he's now a celebrity.
The band is called Jugglers and something.
Oh,
I
okay.
can't think of the other name, but cool.
Fred's one of my dealers when it comes to vinyl.
Of course.
I
He's the
bought a
master.
lot of. Listen, April 8th of last year, I had no vinyl. Okay. 14 months later, I have almost 400 pieces of vinyl. I had, I think, 75 CDs. I've got almost 800 now, most of them blues, just because I love listening to my music.
Oh,
But
okay.
cool.
Fred's always, and then he'll pull stuff out and go, yeah, check out this Bobo Jenkins. There's all 4 of these albums. Nope, they're not for sale. And he puts them away.
Well, no, I only have one.
He wrote the liner notes for all those.
He did, and I found a copy of them last week and bought them. So,
Good deal.
yep. And I told him the price. He goes, well, maybe I need to drop the price a little bit.
Well, I'm old school, and
Yep.
it's a very collectible album, and
It
I
is.
know how many was pressed.
And I have enjoyed
And
the first
it
two.
used to sell for a certain price,
Yep.
and now it doesn't.
The 2 that I've gotten so far have just been fantastic of Bobo. Really enjoyed
Which one?
the music.
The
The
purple?
green one and the purple one are the 2 that
well,
I
the
received.
green one, I told you, Steve Nardella and the
Yep.
Boogie Brothers are
Yep.
back in Bobo for that one.
Did Third Man Records put out one?
Yeah,
That's the purple one,
he
right?
got that one.
That's
Yeah,
the
the
one
purple
he
one.
wrote the liner notes for. Yeah.
Yep. Life and Times or whatever.
Well, they're all called that.
You know what's cool is we'll get a guest on the show, and Fred's like, "I've sold theirs on eBay before. Yeah, we won't talk about that." It's always somebody like one a month. You know, it's like, all right, I love that guy. He's still the old record man. He's always been doing that since the 70s here. So
Oh yeah.
gotta love it. Yeah. So you guys both, Cliff, are you going to dive into more music? As now that you've got kind of a hot track going on with that?
Oh,
or
hey, I chase the story.
just it doesn't matter the story. Period.
Doesn't matter.
So
Does not
people
matter.
can reach out to you, and how can they connect to you?
Well, they can go to totalmichigan.com,
Mm-hmm.
and there's plenty of ways to contact with me on there. I've got like suggest a guest. I've got contact me. They can do that.
Now you'll go all over Michigan.
So I am now a caregiver for my mother. She's got Alzheimer's dementia. So that
God bless you.
limits. Yeah. So that limits where I can go. But yes, I go to state. I do all my interviews face to face, set up my camera, my gear, my equipment there. And I prefer to do it on location because I think like I interviewed Gary. And I think Gary's much more comfortable in the museum talking about the collection. He's got things that he can quickly see and reference in there. To me, it just adds a flavor to the interview that just isn't present if I were to pull him into a studio.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You got to
So
see it to believe it on those kind of
precisely.
things.
Yeah. So I've been as far as Marquette doing interviews up that way.
Okay.
I've been up and down the West Coast. I'm actually got my sights now set on doing some more work in Detroit. But yeah, I mean, if I can get musicians to come on the show, man, I would love that.
And Jay, you just do yours strictly out of Lansing, or have you moved around?
I actually I have a mobile setup, everything, lighting, camera. I use just a regular Logitech Brio 4K webcam, which is a nice wide angle. And I've taken that out to the VFW National Home in Eaton Rapids, for example, to do a Veterans Day program. But I've got everything. I have microphones. I got a mixer. I've got everything that just throws in the back of my car, and
So you're good to go on the road too, then.
I can go on the road. Yeah, but I like to work from home.
We ventured for the first time on the road last summer. Matter of fact, that episode it's going to be out in the next couple episodes here. We had to bump Larry McRae's up for the new album that comes out Friday.
Yeah.
Otherwise, but we're our road trip, and we've got some fellas that are not going to make it to Bay City to see the Hall of Fame to be in our studio. And we're realizing, and sometimes we tell them, hey, you're one, we're four. Can you come to us? We got to show you this, and if whatever. But some guys are just like, I'll never be able to make it, and can't drive at night. So we're contemplating certain road trips now for specific things. So I get that you got to be, free to move around a little bit.
Well, as a lot of the people that we'd like to talk to, that were so important to Michigan's music history,
Yes.
are up there in years.
Yeah.
And, you're talking people, in the 70s or maybe into their 80s. And yeah, that's, you want to get those stories. Yeah, we did go to visit
Morgan.
Scott Morgan.
That's the episode that's going to come soon.
Yeah. And I mean, that was great. And we're talking about maybe a couple other people.
Yeah.
Herb, you had live at your place Jim McCarty, didn't you?
It was actually via Zoom. I had Jim McCarty
it was
and Pat
Zoom?
Smiley. Yeah,
okay.
that was a cool experience, being able to talk to him and talk about some of his ties back to rock and roll.
You bet.
And the funny thing is, there's an album out there that I didn't ask him about because he doesn't like it. There was an album that was released after Jimmy died called 9 to the Universe. You got that one, Fred?
No.
Okay, cool. I got one. You want to? I'll make you a deal.
9 to the Universe by Cactus?
9 to the Universe. No, it's 9 to the Universe is Jimi Hendrix. It was put out after Jimmy died by his manager. And one of the cuts on there is called the Jimmy Jam. Jimmy, Jimi. And it's literally a jam between those two.
Or Jim McCarty and
Jim McCarty and
Jimi
Jimi
Hendrix.
Hendrix.
Ooh, man.
But he doesn't want to talk about it because it wasn't legit. It was put out clandestine.
Right.
And it was wrong. And so he's a man of good moral fiber. So I didn't ask him about it, but I do have a copy of it that I secured. But he had some amazing stories.
Yeah, we
Well, I
want to
know
we want to
him
try to
and-
get McCarty for an interview. Definitely.
We're going to
Him
be
and
down there in
Johnny
July,
B,
actually.
I think just
You going
turned
down?
80.
Yeah, he's one that we have to road trip for.
Yeah, Johnny B as well.
It's time well spent.
He
guys.
called me the other day and asked us to hit the road for him. So,
It is time well spent if you go down there and get him.
yeah, I've had him up here. I was one of them guys on the Saginaw Bay Area Blues Society in the aughts.
Okay.
And I booked all the acts that came up here, and we had
Nice.
Jim come up a bunch, and Duke Tomato, and who's the blues guy from Ann Arbor? That Lath Al-Sadai.
Lath Al-Sadai, yep.
And we had some good times. But McCarty's always been cool. He came up to Scotty Sandbar here in Bay City, and he told me on the phone the other day that those days are nil because nobody's coming out to see him unless he's playing his hometown anymore. So.
Yeah.
Unless he's in a bigger band name or having a brand new record, it's no use going on the road anymore for him. So.
Well, we had him in Lansing at the Michigan Blues Fest last year, him and Pat Smiley. And I'm telling you what, man, they brought it. They delivered the goods for over an hour. And Jim, he just turned 80, okay?
Yeah.
He's not missing a step. He's still getting out there. He's still nailing it. But you talked about the folks that are getting old and can't travel and whatnot. I just interviewed Bob Strozier. He's 94 years old. What an honor to get stories from these guys talking about playing with a diddly bow when they were growing up, on the side of their house. And what we are all doing, all of us that are in this room at this moment, is we are preserving these stories for future generations. It's a pretty big honor and a pretty big brag, but my podcast is the only currently produced podcast that is housed on the Blues Archive at the University of Mississippi. So what I record today will eventually get preserved. They're also doing links to video, but they'll have the audio, they'll have transcripts. Students are going to be able to use them at the University of Mississippi for papers. It's a very cool thing, but I told my kids it's gonna outlive me by a long time.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And now that B.B. King was involved with that, right?
He was the one that started it with 10,000. It was a donation of 10,000 pieces of vinyl and some wax cylinders back in 1982, and it opened in 84. They just celebrated their 40th anniversary.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Incredible.
and my show is there, guys. That is such a cool thing.
That's awesome.
And it's not for me to be braggadocious about. It's an incredibly
It's a time capsule.
yeah, and look at it from my
little bit humbling
position.
too,
It is
right?
very humbling.
Yeah.
But it's a hell of a big responsibility. And I take that responsibility with all of the weight that comes with it. And so when I go and approach these older people, some of these older folks, I've tried to get Buddy Guy, and getting through his net is very difficult. I'm not giving up. As long as there's breath in these lungs, as long as he's alive, I got a chance.
All right. Well, he's still playing. So
He's still
he
playing.
yeah.
That might be a road trip to go down there, and you know where he's going to play at.
I told them I'd travel.
Yeah.
I would go to Chicago if I needed to, but I've not gotten any response. But I've gotten,
He's always at the end of when he's in town, he's at the end of his bar.
Yep,
Just
always.
sitting there drinking cognac.
Yep. But I've gotten some great stories from these people. Deke Harp, he drove bus for James Cotton for 8 years. And now he does harmonicas, okay? He did all of James' harmonicas. He's done Charlie Musselwhite's harmonicas. He's done them for Ozzy Osbourne, Dan Aykroyd, Winona Judd. Had him on. He's got great stories.
Oh, I'm sure.
But all of these people are getting on in years. So it behooves us all
Yeah, certainly.
to capture as many stories as we can.
Cliff, what's one of your favorite episodes? I know Gary's was probably the best, of course, but what was a highlight for you on what you've done so far?
So I'm going to be the odd man out. My favorite episode, my favorite interview on my show was actually with Dorothy Zender from the Bavarian Inn.
Beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Very
That
cool.
was incredible. So
That's awesome.
to set the stage, I hadn't even started my podcast yet. I was pitching to people, like you were saying, it never hurts to ask,
Never
right?
hurts. Yeah.
So I was pitching people, and I thought, you know what? If I could get Dorothy Zender on my show, I can get anybody on my show.
It's true.
So actually, I knew a couple of people that knew people, and I said, hey, put this out there if Dorothy would be interested. it was a couple weeks later, I got an email from her marketing director that said Dorothy would be interested in being interviewed. I was shocked.
There you go.
Didn't even have an episode to show them. Went, sat down, did the interview, and when she walked in the room, I mean, it was hilarious. She told her marketing people, I don't want to do any more interviews, but they convinced her to do my show.
Awesome.
So when she walked into that room, she kind of had this gruff, I'm a businesswoman and don't give me any, and sat down. And I had your challenge, right? What in the world am I possibly going to ask Dorothy Zender that 1,000 other people haven't asked? Because at this point in time, she was 96.
Yee.
So she's been asked every question under the sun.
Yeah.
So in preparation, I was walking around the Bavarian Inn through the gift shops in the basement. There was a plaque hanging on the wall that talked about how in the 1950s, her and Tiny really struggled with, at that time, it was called the Fisher Hotel. They've since rebranded to the Bavarian Inn. Well, as soon as I saw that plaque, I said, that's what we're going to explore. I want to know how they survived that tough time in the 50s.
Yeah.
So I sat down with her and we explored it. She became so open, so vulnerable, more than once, like broke down crying in the interview because she loves what she does so much.
You also set her back in her mind
And
to make her think about those days and relive it.
We talk about influences, right, that people had. And I talked to her about her influence, and hers was her mother. All the recipes they had there at the Bavarian Inn came directly from Dorothy's mother. And once again, she broke down crying. It was beautiful in any way that was like possible. And you talk about video. I wish to God I think I had an iPhone like 4 or something at the time. I really wished I had the foresight to set the camera up and put it on her, just to be able to capture the video of her demeanor over the whole interview changing and how open she became and sharing the story, sharing the struggles, how they got through it. Absolutely, it was amazing, beautiful story. And I remember leaving there thinking, holy cow, that's gold. Right off the bat, that is gold.
Yeah.
And second off, this is why I do what I want. I would live under a bridge if I could keep podcasting.
Yep.
That's
right.
so cool.
I mean, this is why. And you talk about the mission, right? Sharing the
Yes,
stories.
sir.
What you shared there about having your episodes available through the university. That's exactly why I moved mine on the YouTube.
Yep.
So I don't know if YouTube's going to be around as long as the university, but I know YouTube's going to outlive me.
Yeah.
So I want to keep these stories out there for as long as possible. So if anybody looks back at Michigan at this time, they're going to see the people who bent over backwards to try to, improve our lives, to preserve these stories, our heritage, to make a difference in our communities. I want them to see it all, meet the people, and get to know them.
We do the podcast and all the services, of course, through our Libsyn server. But I always do a separate podcast for YouTube with pictures I'll take of us, group shots, and then I'll peel promo shots or live shots I've taken over the years for YouTube. So we'll land one there, and we always have all the servers full. And it's like, I've had guys come to us, you should be on CMU, with your show and have the kids do an edit, take out the F-bombs and, that stuff. But, do a half hour, 45-minute programs. And we've actually had 3 CMU DJs here, and it just hasn't landed yet. But that kind of stuff is, that's why I do YouTube. I'm like, you know what? If something happens with the podcast and Apple goes down, Spotify goes down, Libsyn, YouTube's still going to be up there, and they're going to have the group shots that I do. You get 2 options there. Jay, what's your favorite show, man?
I was sitting here listening to your Zender story, and I had, of course, the Bonamassa story was pretty cool. But I think the coolest episode that I had, my hair starts standing up on my arm when I start talking about it, is the interview I had with Walter Trout. And, for people that don't know the story, Walter almost died a few years ago. He was a drug abuser. He was an alcoholic. He had all kinds of issues going on. And his liver was on its way out. And he damn near died. I've seen pictures of him, and I know his MELD score had to be pretty high. And the reason I know so much about transplants is because my mother, now my late mother, had a liver and a kidney transplant back in 2005. And I used that tie to personalize that interview with him. And I get a little emotional thinking about it, but he talked about his struggle when he had his transplant, and they didn't get a bile duct sealed up. And so it was leaking bile into his abdomen, and they put him in the end of a hall because he was screaming. He was in such pain. But he talked about his struggle. He lost the ability to speak. He lost the ability to play his guitar. We're talking Walter Trout, okay? A legend. He played with Canned Heat. He played with John Mayall. Yeah. The guy he's a walking piece of history. He fought back and struggled back and regained all of that. And he's got a second chance at life. And we got to see him last July in concert in Lansing.
Wow.
And just a wonderful individual. But he told one of his stories about a 3-day intervention that Carlos Santana did with him to get him off of the drugs.
Wow.
And he shared that with me. And one of the cool things about my podcast is when they open up like that and they share those pieces of their life that mean something to them. And you mentioned something earlier about making it about the person you're interviewing.
Correct.
So many times I've heard podcasters, they get this Jolly Joe radio voice on and they talk for 15 minutes and they let you talk for a minute and then they jump right back in because they know everything about everything. Shut up and let the people talk.
Yes.
My podcast is about preserving stories in history.
Yeah.
Okay? They don't need to hear my story. They don't need to hear about me. They need to hear about Walter Trout. They need to hear about Joe Bonamassa. They need to hear about Deke Harp. Those are the things that I work on preserving, are those little pieces of history. Those are the gold nuggets that I go after.
Sure.
For sure. You know, we've lost our podcast is 3.5 years into it. And we lost 3 guests that were scheduled to be on, one a week before, one a month before, and one right after he okayed it. He died like right after that.
Wow.
And, oh no, one was actually we taped him. He died right after that. He taped it. So that was the third one. Yeah, but it's like, yeah, that was the joke for a little while. Like, get them while you can, you know. How can we get this done? You know,
Watch the Reaper, man.
That's right.
Like, are we going to schedule with you? No.
That's right. The curse.
I think that happens in a lot of. I mean, I did an interview. I finally found Bob Elliott. He was a Saginaw musician who was now living in Detroit. So somehow, when we had telephone books, I got his ad. He was a piano teacher. And we talked for about an hour. And I said, I wish I'd have my tape recorder on right now, and I didn't. So he said, well, we'll talk again, we'll talk more. He died like a few weeks later.
Oh man.
So
Scott, can I tell a Fred story?
Yeah.
I got to tell you a Fred story.
We love Fred stories.
He was actually, well, y'all know he can talk, right? You know he can talk. I had Fred on. Fred was actually in Lansing. He did a presentation on his 2 books and the history of the working with Lazy Lester and Boogie Woogie Red and all of the others that he worked with. So many of the greats from the Saginaw Valley. And so I said, I got to get this guy on my show. I got to interview him. And so I brought him on, and forgive me, Fred, I'm going to tell on me and I'm going to tell on you at the same time. 20 minutes later, I finally got to ask my first question, and I was a little pissed. Okay. And I sat back and I let the interview go. It went over an hour, the first interview. And when we got all done, he said, I want to thank you for letting me go on like that. And I said, well, that's okay. I was still a little miffed, but he said, I want to get these stories out there because I'm getting older and I don't want to forget them. And you humbled me. You humbled me because you took me from being miffed to being embarrassed in myself. And I said, you know what, Fred, it's okay. I said, as a matter of fact, I want to have you on for a second round. And I brought him on for the second round. I asked him the first question. I just let him go. And I dropped questions in there when I could. Mm-hmm. But it was all about preserving those stories. I got 2 hours with Fred that are on my podcast on YouTube.
It's beautiful.
It is wonderful. And I want to thank you personally.
He's an encyclopedia.
Good God. The stories. But I want to thank you personally because you taught me a lesson. the episodes need to be about the people you're interviewing.
You
They
know
really
what's
do.
funny is you saying that. I had people once we started the podcast and got a little bit of success a few years ago say you need to do that with families. Put an ad out and capture grandpa's stories for families. And I'm like, yeah, man, if I had the time to do that, that'd be good, because that's what it's all about. You know, now we have the ability to store digitally someone's entire life and their story. And, you know, once grandma's gone, those memories are gone, you know, those kind of things. And it's really hit me like, man, I would love to be able to do that. But, you know, the funding is a whole other thing. But,
That's actually a side business of mine.
yeah.
Yeah. Like I call it Life and Times interviews, and I will go and interview the grandma, the grandpa,
Wonderful.
and capture their story. It's about a 3-hour
Well, I'm glad I
process.
said that. I'm glad they can reach out to you too.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
See, it's funny. My mom for years would tell me, you know, you should be doing this. You should be interviewing people. You're good at talking to people. And it goes back to my early years in broadcasting. Ernie Harwell was my first interview. I wrote a letter, and he invited me down to the corner. I still got the letter. I went down there and sat in his office, and Paul Carey walked in with his great big booming voice. Ernie and I were friends from that point on. That was back in 1990, I think. No, 1980. 1980, I'm sorry. And
That was while you were in Central?
just going into my freshman year, yeah. And until he died, I interviewed him 3 or 4 times, but I had his phone number. I called him up once in a while. Lulu answered the phone one time. That was so cool. I wrote a poem for his birthday. He always wrote me back. And preserving those stories, man, you know, and the whole thing started when I was a kid. You know, they'd always say, what, do you have 20 questions? You got 20 questions all the time? I was always very inquisitive. So it's kind of lent itself to what I do now.
Sure.
You know, and it's fun. To me, it's fun to get those stories.
Yes.
No.
You know?
You said you came from Texas to your freshman year here?
Well, I grew up in Bay City. In '79, we moved to Texas because everybody knows the economy was in the dump.
Right.
And we thought we were going to go and make it down there. Well, things didn't go well, and we ended up moving back.
Did you catch any of those Central shows? The Seeger show, the Van Halen show, any of those?
I didn't, because I was raised in a very strict religious background.
Okay.
Dude, you're like my lost brother.
I was waiting for hearing
Yeah.
that.
But I remember, here's one thing I do remember, when Nugent and Seeger were playing. I lived in the South End. Okay. Anybody from Bay City knows South End means the South End of Bay City.
Right.
Broadway, 28th Street, down that way. We could walk out in the backyard and we could hear Seeger and Nugent when they were playing at Ingle Stadium, because it's only a couple of miles away.
Right.
But it was that loud that you could hear the music all the way to the house in Bay City, in the South End.
So amazing. Anybody that's got stories from them, I'm always interested. You know, it's such a cool little piece of Bay City history.
Well, it's kind of cool. I got one other quick little story I want to throw in here. We were talking about my buddy Andy Kabbalah earlier, and when I was trying to come up with a name for the podcast, I was struggling. You know, I already had an idea of what I wanted to do. I had focus on where I wanted to start, the whole 9 yards. And my buddy's like, well, you know, my producer, he's like, all right, Herb, you got to come up with a title. I got no idea. So I put it out on Facebook and I said, all right, this is just a little impromptu deal. You know, anybody got any ideas? My buddy Andy, we've been friends since '77. Both went to St. Hyacinth. He was playing drums. He says, well, what about time signatures? And I'm not a musician, but he is. And he had described to me what a time signature of a song was. It's the time of a song. But he said you can have it be as a twofold purpose, because your musicians are putting their stamp on this time as well. And so that's where time signatures with Jim Ervin came from. Yeah. And it's like that, and my little catchphrase at the end of the show, I believe, were just divine inspiration. They just came to me like they belonged there.
Yeah.
Like there's no other name I could have for that program.
Well, you know, and it works at a number of different levels.
It does.
Yeah, well, that's cool. And it's the same thing with Total Michigan.
Yeah.
I mean, it works in any way you kind of want it to, or, you know, whatever you present really works into that title.
Well, I wish I had a cool story like you did on how I came up with my name. I actually, from my marketing background, you don't come up with a product name unless the domain name is available. So I ran a contest online, and I just told people, I said, hey, this is the purpose of the show. Give me names. I would like to have Michigan be in it. And as I was going through, and there was some pretty ridiculous names on
sure.
there. But I stopped at Total Michigan. And when I saw that, I thought to myself, you know what? That encompasses the spirit of the show.
Right.
Because
Sure.
it is the Upper Peninsula. It's the Lower Peninsula.
Yeah.
I go all over the state to capture stories, and I want it to be really about focusing on Michigan.
It also gives you probably the drive to live up to that name.
It does. It does. Yeah. Every time that I get behind the mic and I do my introduction, and you saw this on the video. I even changed it on the video when I was first putting together the videos and recording the voiceover for it. And I would get up there and I would say, "This is Total Michigan." It didn't feel right, And if you guys are musicians, when it doesn't feel right, you can't do it. So I put everything on hold and I switched it up and I said, "No, we are Total Michigan."
Cool.
And that's how I revamped it from that point forward. It's not about this is total. This we are.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
This is encompassing. This
Your
is a
identity.
community.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
How long have you been doing it now, Cliff?
So I started my show in January of 2020.
You beat us by a year and a month. We started February 2021.
And you've got over 200 episodes also.
Yeah.
So you've racked up a lot of shows.
I did. Thank you for that. I did take a year off. I had some really hard times at the end of 2021, or at the end of 2020. Going into 2021, I just took that entire year off. Then going into 2022, I was just starting to think about what I was going to do when a couple of people from SVSU reached out to me and said, "Hey, we want to work with you on your show and sponsor you." I'm like, "Wow, I'm going to get paid to do what I love.
Nice.
Sign me up." And that was kind of like that divine kick in the butt to get going. And that's when doors started opening. And that's when the show got introduced to radio, which led to a second radio station and a third radio station. And it just all snowballed from there. And now it's something I absolutely love to do.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Huh. Great stories. And then you came along in 2023, 2022?
Yeah, January of 23.
23.
So we're
Bang,
a
bang,
little,
bang. We
just
all-
a little bit over 2 years in,
Yeah.
calendar years. And it's funny because I'm on several groups on Facebook that are related to podcasting, and they always say, "Well, what's your biggest key to staying motivated?" And it's like every time I talk to somebody, I'm motivated, and I'm always looking for the next one. And it's like, how can you, with the way my podcast is, and this is just me, how can I get bored with that? It's never going to be the same. There's always something different, but the challenge is eliciting those stories, getting those stories out of them,
Right.
making a way for them to
And
come
finding the cool questions too that
Yeah,
make it worth the while.
out. Absolutely.
Because everybody's got the same drag for most of it, but it's like to open them up, to get them to open up is a cool thing.
Yes.
I think to chase your idea there, I saw this the other day on a YouTube video that I was watching where the guy had been a content creator for a number of years. And the one thing that he shared on there, because they were asking him, how can you do this for so long, right, and not get burned out? And he said, every time that I do an episode, there's a little part of it in there that's just for me. I mean, I make content because I want audience. I want people to listen to it. But there's a part of it that I do for me, and that's what keeps me inspired. That's what drives me,
Totally,
right?
yeah.
And I think because you and I are on similar missions, right?
Yes, sir.
It's about capturing those stories. So every day that I wake up, it's either I'm inspiring somebody or I get to capture a cool story today,
Yeah.
right? And if one person listened to it, cool, right? If one person gets inspired by it, cool.
Yep.
But I get to capture it, I get to document it, and now I have it, and that keeps me driving forward.
And we opened up to all Michigan music styles. I mean, Freddie's a blues man, obviously, and Gary's a rock guy. But I'm a musician. Freddie's a musician, and it's like, let's bring it all in. I've been a music journalist since 1994 or 5. So
Wow.
I've been interviewing people for so many years now, and it's like we could talk to everybody. And I mean, some of our coolest episodes is finding out the little polka story, or from the random guy, or a Detroit guy that comes up and he's an author, and you're like learning about Americana and the start of country music. Then you bring, it's just, and then of course we have all these rock legends in the state, and it goes on, and we get to all touch base, and Mike captures it all video, and Freddie brings in, questions of the old school style, and Gary and I are obviously rock and roll and very up to beat on, different musical styles. So it's like we have a vast array, and we've broke 100 episodes now. So
Good.
Congratulations.
Yeah, no kidding. And the other thing is, with the blues, people think the blues is just the genre. There's not. There's multiple different types. There's Memphis blues, Chicago blues, Piedmont blues.
It's like barbecue.
I just learned about the Louisiana swamp blues. There's all kinds of blues out there. So you never run out of,
Right.
And it's cool because every brand of the blues, it's got its own following and its own musicians. Some of them cross over. And man, that's the fun stuff. It never gets boring. It never gets old.
That's awesome.
Well, doing what you love. I mean, really, that's the key, isn't it?
There is that
Amen to
story.
that.
Yeah.
I really hope you get Charlie Musselwhite, because he is definitely.
I got his phone
old
number now,
school.
buddy.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. That you listen, you could have knocked me over with a feather, and I'm being honest as the day is long about this. When Charlie Musselwhite sends you a text message, says, "Hey, my sister's tells me you've been trying to reach me. Here's my number. Let's talk."
Really?
I mean, how cool is that? And I would say 98% of the people out there in the blues genre, the various forms, are very approachable. Some of the biggest names in the blues I've reached out to directly. Elvin Bishop, for example. I talked to him on Facebook.
Charlie Musselwhite definitely is.
Yeah, but I've tried to reach him and I never got any answer. But he's busy. I get it.
Right.
And it just so happened that I stumbled onto his sister. I didn't know if it was his daughter, who it was. And
His daughter, I think, is like a folk singer. I think that's his daughter.
this actually was his sister Betty.
Oh, okay.
And I saw the name and I went, well, maybe I got a connection here. So I sent her a note. She goes, "Send me your number. I'll make sure he gets it." And a couple of days later I get this message. But I would say good 98% of the people out there that are in the blues genre they're very approachable, very personable, very decent.
We know you nabbed Larry. What other Michigan blues have you? I mean, McCarty you've mentioned tonight.
Yeah.
Name some Michigan blues you haven't been able to tackle yet, or have and you haven't mentioned them yet.
Well, I'm getting ready. Okay, so I started
Most
doing
of them
this.
are dead. So,
Well, a lot of the older ones, are gone already. But what I'm trying to do right now is, in addition to my podcast episodes, I do promotional content episodes. For example, I just did one with Larry McRae that aired yesterday for his album that's being released on Friday. We recorded that probably a month ago. I also do exclusive content episodes, which is where I take the extended 30 to 45 an hour long content episodes and put those out there under that. So if people want it, they know what they're getting in advance.
Who are some of the artists
As far as
that you haven't tackled blues wise in Michigan?
So
I want to talk about Michigan
So
music.
I'm working right now on doing something I call storytellers. And I did this in Lansing with about 10 musicians from the Lansing area. Had Mike Scory, I had Bill Malone, I had Freddie Cunningham. There's a bunch of them. Uncle Randy Gillespie, Uncle G, they call him. So I reached out to some Detroit people, and I'm going down on the 18th to record an episode with
Reverend Jones.
No, I want to get him. I'm working on that. Working on doing one right now with
times.
Motor City Josh, getting Greg Nagy, Pat Smiley's going to be there, and I can't remember the fourth one, but we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go in there with a series of questions. You talk about your toughest gig, talk about your most frustrating gig. Cool. Just all kinds of things.
You got some Michigan blues lined up here.
Oh, yeah.
And I think you mentioned on the Larry show, Lamar Williams' brother from Lansing there.
James, yes, sir.
Yeah, he's a cool dude, man.
Yeah, James and Freddie were on my first two episodes, which, oh my God, they're don't listen to those episodes. I sound terrible. It was one of them things where I was brand new at it. I had to kind of find my way and feel my way in there. Yeah. But now I just try to have it be fun and get those stories out there and get them to talk,
Cliff, you got any Michigan music things up your sleeve at all, or any want list things, or it just happens as it happens?
So it happens as it happens.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, like we've been talking about, big names like Seeker and I'd love to get any one of those guys on the show. Actually, I put that at the end of your video.
Oh yeah.
You probably
Right.
could get Alice Cooper.
I was like, you know what? If Bob Seger sees this, I want him to know that I'd love to be able to interview him because I grew up like in the '80s, right? And conservative family, right? Quick story on that. So conservative family can't listen to rock music because it's a tool of the devil and you're gonna burn in hell. And I found a radio in the basement. It had a single speaker on it. So at night, what I would do is I would slide that into bed and turn it on with my ear on it so I could listen to the music. So that chapter of my life, I call it Radio Free Cliff.
Oh, wow.
So the church had this thing where they had a bunch of his kids roller skating at the rink, and Hot Blooded by Foreigner was playing, and I knew every word of the song. So as I'm skating around the rink and I'm singing at the top of my lungs, the whole church is watching me.
How does
And
he
my
know
mom
that?
is embarrassed like crazy. I'm like, Hot Blooded is going around the
That's a great story.
So anyways, because Bob Seger was a big part of my life, like in the '80s, because his music just kept coming. So yeah, I'd love to interview him. But really, I'm just looking for any musician out there, and if any musician is listening to this and they want to be on the show, and maybe you guys got some ideas.
Well, like I just said, Alice Cooper's putting out the Alice Cooper Band, first album since Muscle of Love. It's a big deal, and it's coming out here in a few months, and he's doing promo right now. So if there's a chance that he comes around or can talk to you or however it can be done, I'm sure he will tie it to the Pontiac stories of where they were up and coming and creating their music from.
Hey, Scott, does he have any ties to the blues?
You never know. You never know, man. we could go through some of his artists that played with him.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's somebody in that thing, but that's going to be awesome this year.
Well,
That would be a cool one.
in conjunction with one of the new displays we're going to be putting up in the expanded area here is dealing with Rollaire. And Alice Cooper, the Alice Cooper Band, made its debut here in the Bay City area at Rollaire at one of their concerts. So Chad Cunningham is, he's booked Alice here a couple times, and we're trying to get a costume.
Oh, cool.
To have it in the hallway right across from the Rollaire display, which we have the original newspaper article that's got the picture of Alice performing on the Rollaire stage. And this was before they had any hits.
Wow.
So probably I'm going to guess that maybe 99% of the kids that were out there at Rollaire had no idea who Alice Cooper was when they were seeing him perform. In fact, they weren't even on the poster.
Yeah.
They were a last minute, somebody dropped out, and they had just come into the Detroit area, and they booked him, to open the show, and the Bay City Times photographer happened to be there. So we've got photographs of it.
And
I like Bob Darby's story.
I was just going to say, Bob Darby's got that great story of they went to pay him, and they go, when's Alice? When's she coming in here? And Alice is like, really?
No.
Yeah.
One of my coolest memories when I was at Bay City Central, the last day of school, and we're talking, June, it's warm.
Sure.
And we had no central air at Bay City Central High School. So they'd open these great big windows on the second floor, and WCHW would open the door to the radio station and crank up Schools Out by Alice Cooper.
Nice.
And all down second floor hall, that's all you could hear. And the teachers are upset and they're closing doors, but it was a rite of passage, man.
Of course. What a perfect song for the end of the school year.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember that very well when that came out.
Man, what a huge song. Till to this day, I mean, when my kids saw him a couple months ago in May, we went saw him at Civic Center, and they were like, "Oh, that's him that plays that song." And my kids are 15. I'm like, it's the real dude right there. But I was gonna tell you, you got Ted Nugent coming to town in Saginaw. I know a lot of people have a hard time dealing with him now, but he's been going back through the original Stranglehold tapes, finding different versions. He's talking about it right now. It's like, finally, talk about music, and it's like he's got some cool old stories to tell if you can nab him. He's one of them guys where I interviewed him in the 90s, and he's like, "Hey, Scott, yeah, I'll talk to you later." And he'll call me, "Hey, what's going on, Scott?" "Yeah, not much." You get him on, "All right, we're recording." "Hey, what's up, man? How you doing?" It changes his whole persona.
Yeah.
But he's definitely got the right now he's reminiscing the Stranglehold era, and that's what he's taking.
I would just love to find out about his ties to the blues, because he talks about being influenced
that goes back
heavily.
to the Amboy Dukes.
Yeah.
For sure.
But I'd love to get some of them stories out of him. And
I'm sure he'd do it.
yeah,
He's coming to
Well,
Saginaw.
Dick Wagner was. I mean, he was into the blues.
Dick was. He had a lot of classical influence too, but he also had jazz and blues influence. I mean, Donnie Hartman had a little more blues in him when the
Right.
Frost, and you could get Donnie. I mean, maybe not.
Well,
Donnie's
I
actually.
have to go up there.
We're gonna still try to get the drummer from the Frost too.
Bobby Rigg.
Bobby Rigg. Bobby's still kicking it, but Donnie's, I heard, has dementia pretty bad.
Drummers have that way, man.
Yeah,
Seems
man.
like
He killed it last year. I was downtown playing, and he was across town. I went to go say hi to him, and he was already on stage, and I just waved at him. But we used to hang out when I worked with Wagner at his studio, and Bobby was a sweetheart, dude.
yeah.
But yeah, there's, Wagner had some blues in him. But, when he joined Cooper, that was Welcome My Nightmare, the first album after Muscle of Love, which was the last album with the original band. So it's like they kind of went to the, they wrote more for the concept,
Well, theatrical.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a big part of,
Yeah.
Welcome to My
So
Nightmare
huge.
and so on.
Yeah. But yeah, good luck with you guys' adventures. This has been really cool to have you on here.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. Anything else you had in your paperwork there, Gary? You want to
I
ask?
think we covered pretty much everything.
Well,
Cliff
let me
and
just
Jay,
let me
thank
just
you.
say thank you guys for having me on. It's
Yes.
an honor to be here today. Always looking for people to come and check out the podcast. We're on YouTube. Just look up Time Signatures with Jim Ervin, Ervin. You can find J Ervin Bates on Facebook. We also have Cabs Time Signatures on Facebook. And I'll get you guys links if you want so you can put those
Sure.
up. But
Sounds good.
always looking for people to check it out. And like Cliff here, I'm always looking for people that are tied into the blues, that are musically inclined and have some great stories.
Yeah. And Cliff, you want to give your call out one more time?
Yeah, sure. So we're on all the platforms. Just go to Total Michigan, or you can go to totalmichigan.com and find us there. We've been all over the state, so odds are we've had people in your area that have come onto the show and shared their story with us.
But hey, thank you guys.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me.
On behalf of our hosts, we would like to thank the Michigan Rock Legends Hall of Fame, our guests, and especially our listeners. The MMHP is found on the 989 network, as well as all familiar podcast hubs. Up-to-the-minute information, as well as Dr. J and Sir Fred's Michigan Music Songs of the Week, can be found on the MMHP's Facebook page, /MMHP989. You can connect with Scott at scottbakermusic.com, Dr. J at michiganrockandrolllegends.com, Sir Fred at fredrife.com, and Mr. Mike on YouTube as MRBTEE1.
And on behalf of Dr. J, Sir Fred, Mr. Mike, and myself, Scott Baker,